All right, so let's start up. The first thing is, I mentioned this to you the other day, I believe, but I'm going to say it again. Hopefully, all of you at your Rankin email have gotten a thing from Stan Schoen, who's the president of Rankin, and it's asking you, it should be called something like survey or HLC survey. It's 5 minutes long. But again, in March, we are having people from the Higher Learning Commission come to the St. Louis campus, and they're also going to be contacting instructors and possibly students from both the Wentzville campus and the Perryville campus. The Higher Learning Commission are the people who basically give us our accreditation. All right, so if you get, if you can look at this, if it's not there yet, fine. It's due a week from today. So if it's not there yet, they better put it there soon. But it's a 5-minute long survey in which you discuss, I think, what you like and don't like about Rankin. I think it's about a dozen questions. All right. So that's first thing. Second thing, please start up Visual Studio. And we're just going to get to right here. Again, if Ms. Bruggeman comes in here with our guest, okay, then that's fine. We'll stop for a couple minutes and let her talk. All right? But I'm assuming that everybody can get into Visual Studio, everybody in this room, everybody, we're going to start up a new project, but it will be the other type of project. Everything we do right now, I'm going to give you a copy of it. All right? And you'll get it later. Problem is, if I give it to you now, some of you are going to just start typing away, and I would rather have you understand what you're doing. We're going to create an unbelievably simplistic program, but it'll allow me to show you a lot of different things. So I'd like you to do a File, New, Project. But instead of saying Console App.NET Framework, which is what we have been saying, I want you to choose the second one down, which is Windows Form App.NET Framework. I'd like everybody to choose that. Wherever you save your stuff, and I'm just going to call this like it's one big word, red, white, blue. All right, red, white, blue. It doesn't matter. You're not turning this in anyway. You want to call it test or practice or something else, you can do that. Pardon? I want you to choose the second one down, Windows Forms App.NET Framework. All right, and then just click OK. It's going to look different than it's looked in the past. Yours may end up looking a little bit different than mine, or it may look very similar to mine. If you don't have this thing showing here, don't worry about it. I'll show you how to bring it up. All right. If right now you don't have this showing on your screen, so let's say your screen looks like this right now, basically like nothing. Okay. If that happens, go over to your menu here and go to View and choose about halfway down Toolbox. All right, again, about halfway down. So View, Toolbox, choose that. That'll bring up your toolbox. Your toolbox may not look like mine. If yours does not look like mine and you want to do this, you can click this little thing that kind of looks like a stick pin up here. It is called a pin, and it will keep the toolbox on your screen. All right. If you don't have it pinned, you can see what happens. It's over here once you do a View Toolbox, but it doesn't show. Not only that, when you bring it up, it blocks part of the form. So I like to pin it. You don't have to do that. If you think, yeah, you pinned it, but it's too wide, you can go and click on this big bluish or blackish bar here and make it more narrow. All right, so that's the first thing. All right, second thing, this thing right here, this thing, and yours might be bigger than mine, smaller than mine. It doesn't matter. Notice that it's got little knobs on it here, so I can go and pull on it, make it bigger or smaller. I can make it taller if I want to, etc. All right. This thing that's in here, this is called your form designer. All right? Now, if you have something here, great, and if you don't, that's okay. But I'm going to do a view, and I'm going to choose first Solution Explorer, which is the third one down. File, I don't know why I keep saying file. View Solution Explorer. And that brings up, surprise, my Solution Explorer. What the Solution Explorer is it's kind of a map, so to speak, to everything that you have in the project. I'm not going to run through each one of the things that's in here right now. All right? The other thing I want to do is I want to, again, click View and go down right near the bottom, 3 from the bottom, and choose Properties window. That splits this into 2, where I've got on the top half my Solution Explorer, and on the bottom half I've got my Properties window. I can make either one of those bigger or smaller by clicking this bar, and I can make it wider or more narrow by clicking this bar. Does all that make sense? Yes? Go ahead.
Sorry, what kind of files is supposed to be?
It's the second one. It's the Windows Format.NET framework.
Okay.
Right? What we care about in here, if you look up on the screen, what we care about in here is twofold. You'll notice the bottom 2 files say form1.cs and program.cs. Everybody see what I'm talking about? When we did the programs, the console programs that we worked on the first 2 days, we didn't have a form file. This is what makes your program graphical, GUI, graphical user interface program. When we add code, we will not be adding it to this file. We will not be adding it to that file as we did previously. Instead, we will be adding it to the form.cs file. All right? And don't worry about it right now. I'm just telling you that's what we're going to do. All right? The first thing I'd like you to do is I want you to get used to the idea that when you've got stuff on the form, you name everything you put on there. And that's the first thing you should do when you start to put things on there, is to name them. Well, let's start with this. If I click in here, notice if I click out of here, I can click in here, but if I click in here, didn't want to do that. But if I click in here, it says over here Form 1. That's the name of it right now. But what I want you to realize, please look up on the screen here. This right here where it says Form 1, that is not this. That is not the name. That's just the text that's up there right now. We're going to change the name of the form right now. All right? Now, it used to be, back in the olden days, like 5 or 10 years ago, that Microsoft recommended that if you created a form, we're going to name our form. In fact, we're going to name our form red, white, blue. You can't have any blank spaces when you're naming things. Microsoft used to recommend that you use a 3-letter prefix. So we used to call this FRM, red, white, blue. Some people still do that. You might find some code out there that's still done like that. But what Microsoft recommends right now is that we do it the first way. So that's the way that we're going to do it in here. All right, if you get a job someplace and they have you do it another way, well, then they have you do it another way. It's not that big a thing. But I'd like us to be consistent here. So, with the form, if I go into my properties window and I go up to the very top, so I move this properties window here up to the very top, what you should always find is the first property should be form. All right? What I'm going to recommend right now is don't click these buttons that are right here. They don't hurt anything, but they're going to change the view that you have. And then I'll have to tell you how to reset them, and I don't want to do that right now. All right? So where it says Form 1 right there, I'm going to click inside of there, and I'm going to remove the 1, and I'm going to put red, white, blue. So I've changed the name for my form to form red, white, blue. If you try to do this and you hit the space bar in there and you hit enter, it's going to tell you that you have an error. All right? Or if you put in a weird special character that it doesn't recognize for a name, it's going to give you an error. Okay? But watch what happens here, if you would, please. I'm going to hit enter. All right? Once I hit enter, it changed my name here. It didn't change it here. I don't worry about that. But that still says Form 1. Everybody see that? So I want to change this text because I don't like it saying Form 1. So now I'm going to go down in my Properties window, down near the bottom, and find text. And I'm going to change that from Form 1 to something like my first C# GUI application. If you don't like that, type in whatever you'd like. But as soon as I type that in and hit enter, you can see how it changes up there. All right? I think it's a good idea. What I prefer would be every time you do an assignment that's a GUI assignment, you change the text so you put your name in here and the name of the program. That makes it much easier when a simpleton like me is grading your stuff. It's less chance of me screwing it up. All right? Any problems with that? Any questions on that? All right, we're going to change one more thing for the form. I don't like this color. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to go up to the top, but notice there's a property here that's called back color. All right? So where it says back color in my properties, I'm going to click on the gray box, okay, and then I'm going to click this down arrow. And it shows me there's 3 different ways I can set colors here. It's actually more than that, but these are the 3 ways from here. You'll notice now it's a system color that's called control. I don't want system. I don't want web. I want the one that says custom right here because that brings up the color palette. So I'm going to go over here and click custom, and I'm going to choose under the yellows, the 3rd one down here. I'm going to make my form yellow. Okay? And you can see immediately what happens. When you, more often than not, when you change a property in the Properties window, you immediately see it reflected in the form. All right? Now, I'm not going to change this. I'm not going to change this, but if you notice here, not only is there a background color, there's a foreground color. That foreground color is the color of the text. Does that make sense? The background is literally that. The foreground is the color of the text. For now, we'll leave it black, and that's just fine. All right? Now, anybody have any problems with anything we've done so far? All right. Then what I'd like you to do is just watch me for a second, if you would, because I want to show you what we want to do is we want to go over to our toolbox over here. And again, if yours isn't showing, view toolbox, and you can pin it. But I want to show you 3 ways that I can go and add controls here. All right? I literally want to put 5 buttons on this form. So if I want to, I can double click the button control, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom, I've got 5 buttons. And I can move them around, etc. That's one way you can do it. All right? Some people think that's the easiest way. Some people think that's the hardest way. The other way I can do it, or another way, is I can hold down with my left mouse button on the button control, drag, and drop. That's another way I can do it. All right, so I could do that 5 times. Yet another way to do it is to bring out one button like this, highlight it, do a Control-C to copy, and a Control-V to paste. Does that make sense? I don't care how you do it. Put 5 buttons on the screen, please. I'd like 3 buttons in a row someplace over here, and the numbers we're going to change these names in a minute, so these numbers are not at all important, but I'd like there to be 3 buttons and 2 buttons. I guess I've got 6 on the screen, so I'm going to remove one of them. So I want your screen to look somewhat like this. If yours is wider than mine, it's no big thing. Now, an important thing for you to understand as we start to do this, because I may use some terminology, and I want to make sure I explain the terminology first. So the first thing that we're going to do is you're going to learn how to lasso. And what does that mean? Take your mouse, put it someplace over here, hold down on the left mouse button, and just surround all of these. And once you let go, if they all have the little marks on there, you've lassoed them. All right? So I'd like you to lasso all 5 buttons at once. The properties window, you may or may not know this, it has changed. Notice there's no name up there. There's some things that are now missing. They're missing because these are, whenever I apply right now, I'm applying to all 5 buttons. All right? Now, if I wanted to, please look up on the screen. I could come in here and I could change things like width and height, but I don't want to do that here. I want to make these buttons a little chunkier and a little longer. So I can grab any one of them, and notice if I take my mouse and I put it inside of here, I get this little arrow that goes in both directions. So I'm going to move them over, and then I'm going to move them up. See what I just did? And again, try it. If you have problems, you can do them one at a time. It doesn't hurt. But I just did all of them at once because it's faster. So we have right now kind of an ugly interface. All right? But it's fine. For what we want to do right now, it's fine. But one thing is I can click on any one of these and drag it anywhere on the screen I want. Would you agree with that? I mean, we've already done that. But what I want to do is I don't want to be able to do that anymore. I want these to stay stationary where they currently are. Looking at it, it's not perfect here. It's not terrible. That's a little better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lasso these again. And once they're lassoed, I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to choose lock controls. I'm right mouse clicking and choosing lock controls. Now notice I can't move any of these. They're stuck where they are. If I decide I want to remove or move one again, I'm able to do that by just right mouse clicking on it and choosing lock controls again. So it's a toggle. Clicking on it once locks it, clicking on it again unlocks it. That should make sense to everybody. All right? So the next thing I want you to do, and I'm going to do one, I'll do all of them, but just so you see this, I want to change the name of these buttons. So I want the name of this button right here to be button, not butto, button red. I want the name of this button right here to be button white. And I want the name of this button right here to be button blue. In addition to that, I want the text on the button to be red, the text on this button to be white, and the text on this button to be blue. Then for these 2 buttons that are down here, I want this one to be renamed button clear, and I want this one here to be named button exit, and I want the text on here to be clear, and I want the text on here to be exit. Does that make sense to everyone, what I'm asking you to do? If it doesn't, just to show you, I'll grab the first button here, right here, where it says, mine is button 4, yours may be something else. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to go up to the top in my properties window, change the name from button 4 to button red. Then, with that still highlighted, I'm going to go down near the bottom and change the text from, in my case, button 4 to the word red. And you can see how it's changed. All right, so I'm going to do the other ones. I'll give you a couple minutes. to do the same thing. Please raise your hand if you have any questions or problems when you try to do this. You know, you say it's when I don't. It's real simple. Yeah, you're learning to build an interface. Yes, sir. Yes. Well, since you typically use Android Studio for Android projects, all right, and Android is much different because it's got XML in it, and you can play with the XML. I'd say this is more intuitive, all right, than Android Studio is. I actually like Android Studio better because my affinity for Microsoft is like my affinity for the Chicago Bears. Yeah, then you should have no problem. Right now, just so you know this, if you look up on the screen, please, we're going to change some of this stuff later. But right now, if I go to run the program, it's still clicking that green arrow button. And again, it'll look a little different when we get done later. But you'll probably guessed that I can click any of these buttons and not a doggone thing happens because we haven't put any code in there yet. Does that make sense to everyone? But one thing I want you to understand, I'm going to show you something. Don't do this. I'm going to show you something. Don't do it. Let's say that I asked you to put another button in here. So it's just for right now, I'm going to throw another button up there. All right, so I ask you to put another button in. It's going to be longer. It's going to be chunkier. Again, I don't want you to do this. But let's just say I asked you to do that. And I say, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put some code in there. Okay? And the way that you put code in there is you double click on the button. But I want to show you this, if you please look. So notice when I double click, it comes up and it says private void button 1. In fact, I've got all these, button 3, etc. I didn't want those, but I've got those in there. I don't want any of these, and I'm going to show you how to get rid of them. You should always get used to build your interface, rename every control on the interface, then add the code. Don't change that order. Now, you may have to, occasionally, you may, oh, geez, I got to add another button. But it still remains the same. You add the GUI control, you rename it, and then you add code for it. All right? So right now you might think, well, geez, all I have to do is highlight these and hit delete. That's not the way you get rid of them. All right? So for instance, if you look up on the screen here, I don't want this one anymore. And if I just do this, if I just would hit delete right now, it would delete this control. But it would leave that code there. I don't want that code there. I don't want you, when you write your code and you turn in your homework, I don't want a bunch of these things that are in here that are all empty. Why? Because it looks unprofessional to do that. And it's also code bloat. You're adding code where there's absolutely no reason to put that code in there. So what you do to get rid of it, and that's what I want to do here, is you highlight the control like right here. All right, now I'm going to click. If you notice these buttons here, one of these buttons looks kind of like a lightning bolt. So I'm going to click on the lightning bolt, and notice it says click, button 1 click. Now I can highlight this and hit delete, and now that code is gone. All right, that's the way that you get rid of it. There is no button 1 here anymore. It's gone. All right, now I still have a button 3 and a button 5. I'm not even sure why they're there. All right, I screwed something up before. All right, but I've already renamed my controls. I'm going to try to do this, but I may get an error message later. All right, I'm not going to worry about it because this is just a simplistic little program anyway. All right.
What happens if you do get an error later?
If you get an error later, it depends on what the error is. In fact, if you look right here, it's now giving me errors for those 2 lines right here. So what I'll do is I'll come back in and I'll do a Control Z, which removes, it looks like in that got rid of the errors. I may have to leave it there because of the way I put it in. All right, it's not really that big a thing. But notice here for the form, I've got a thing for form load. What is that? That's when the form loads into memory. All right, so I can come up here and I can click on my form, and now notice it's got form load right there. I can click there and remove that. Now notice when I view my code, whoops, that form load is now gone. All right. Okay, so I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to get rid of this button because I don't want it. All right, but I'm going to go, and now I want to do this one button at a time. Does it make sense to you in this very simplistic program? When I click this button, what I want to do is I want the form to turn red. When I click this button, I'll want the form to turn white. When I click this button, I'll want the form to turn blue. When I click here, I want it to go back to its yellow. And when I click here, I'll want to exit the program. All those make sense? All right. This, and this require only 1 line each. And it's the same line. All I have to do is change the color. All right? It doesn't matter the order in which you do these, but to me, it makes the most sense to do red, then white, then blue, then clear, then edit, or exit rather. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to double click the red button, and notice the name that's on here. If you've renamed it like I asked you to, yours should also say button red. If you didn't rename it, it's going to have button followed by a number. All right? And all I have to do here is to say this dot back color equal color dot red. That's all. That's all you got to put in there. This, the word this, is a key word in the language, and it means whatever it is you're working with. In this case, this means the form itself. So I want the background color for the form to be red. That makes sense? All right. If you put that in, you can go back to here. I'll go right back to it, and you can double click your white button and put in the same code. All right. Notice this still says button 5. What does that mean? That means I did not rename that. See this? I don't want that there. I want to get rid of it. So I screwed up. Boy, there's a first. So I'm going to come back into here, and this button, even though it says button white now, somehow it's screwed up. So you asked the question before, Jason, like what can you do about that? One thing I can do is literally just get rid of the button, copy another one, paste it back in, oops, and then go through the process all over again. Now notice it says red, but it's not red. It's still button 5. Now, I wish I wouldn't have done that, but I did. All right, so I'm going to come back here. I'm going to remove it one last time, copy it over, and bring it in one last time. Hopefully for the last time. All right, let's lock this.
Where do you go to rename it?
You click on it. Don't double click, but single click on it. You go over to your properties window, and you go up to the top. Now, if you still looks like this, then instead of the lightning bolt, you'll want to click. It's one of these two. I always forget which one. I think it's the third one. but you have to click one of the other buttons. I click the third one. I'm going up to the top. Someplace in here it should say name. Oh, which one is it? If you look, here it says, this shows you all of your properties by category. This shows you an alphabetic list of properties. And this shows you all the properties, period. I think it's the alphabetical one. At least I thought it was. All right, there's my name, button 1. So this will now become button white. Then I also want to come down here to the text because I don't want two buttons that say red. All right, so there I've got that. Now, if you look on the screen here, I still have this, or do I? Nope. Now I've got a button 3. So I screwed up there too. That's okay. I'll fix it in just a minute. But I'm going to double click on my button white, and I'm going to put in this dot back color equal color dot white. Now I've got two of the buttons done. Go back to the design mode again, double click on my blue button. It's button blue, so this dot back color equals color dot blue. All right, so those are all done. So what's left? Well, my clear button. So my clear button will be, I just want to set the color back to yellow. Normally you do other things in the clear button, but that's okay. So I've got all of this done right now, okay? Good morning. And I'm going to save this, and I'm going to run it again. And please look up on the screen. Notice red changes it to red, white to white, blue to blue, and clear goes back to yellow. You should get the same thing. All right? We're going to pause for a moment because Ms. Herron is here to talk to you. Please give her your undivided attention, and then we'll pick it back up again when she concludes.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Good morning. How are you starting at first class? My name is Crystal Herron. I am Vice President for Student Success. And I just wanted to, come out and welcome you. I think some of you are returning students, but there are a couple of you who are brand new. Is that correct, Mr. Scott? And so really,
since somehow I goofed mine up, I got rid of my exit button and then put it back again. I believe that right now my interface is okay. So if I come in here and I click red, white, blue, they all work. Clear gets it back to the original. Exit does nothing. All right? So I gave you the code for the exit button. And the code for the exit button, again, it's on the back of the handout that I gave you. And to make my life a little bit easier, I'm just going to copy it in. I already wrote the program. And this will allow me to explain this to you as well. So there's the code. I'm putting it in here. I'm going to run the program again. Please look on the screen. Red works, white works, blue works, clear gets it back to yellow. When I click exit, it comes up with what's called a message box. And it says to me, do you want to exit the program now? If I say no, it keeps me in the program. But if I say yes, it ends the program. Does that make sense? All right. And when you look at the code here, it's really not that difficult to understand. This says I'm going to show a message box right there. This, what comes next, that's the text that appears in the message box. Then we've got the title of the message box. We've got two buttons, a yes button and a no button, and they're right here. The icon that was by the message box was a little I for information. That's right here says, if I set up this dialog box, this message dialog box, and I click yes, exit the program, application.exit. If what I put in there, if you look on the screen, please, what I'm going to do just for a second is I'm going to comment out all of this. All right, I'll put it back in just a second. But I'm going to comment out that, and I'm going to comment out this line as well. If I did that, and if all I put in here was application.exit, and I run the program, and I click exit, I'm done. That's a little bit harsh. So the reason that I put it in like this is sometimes, what if you click that exit button by accident? All right, now you will be asked, you will be prompted, do you want to end the program? Does that make sense? All right, so it's 9:31. We've been a little screwed up today with Ms. Heron coming in, etc. So what I'll do is at 9:45, I will finish this. We will be done by 10 o'clock. I just want to show you some aesthetic things as far as moving stuff around on the screen. So let's take a break. Hopefully, if you haven't had a chance to key in all of that code, you'll have the chance to do it right now. All right? You don't have to turn this in. Just so you know, this stuff that's right here doesn't have to be on multiple lines like I put it. I put it that way so you could read it easier. Right? You could just string it all on one line, but then it would scroll off the page, which is why I didn't do that. So the first thing to tell you, especially for the two of you, this back there in the red shirt, that's Tony Calcaterra. Tony is the tutor for this class. Now, if you have questions, feel free to ask me. But if you want to go and ask Tony, if I'm busy or whatever, feel free to ask him. He's run through the class before, and he passed. All right? And you can also go over by Tony if you just want to know anything there is about New England Patriots football. Just as, the same thing. All right. So if you look on here, we now have a working program. I'm going to click my double disk icon just to save everything. Or again, you can do a file, save all, or if you're really hard up, a Control plus Shift plus S. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can. And notice now if I run it, again, my red works, my white works, my blue works, my clear works, etc. I'm going to say no. Now, you may or may not be able to tell this, but if you look on the screen, I'm going to hit my tab key. You may or may not have noticed, and I actually didn't mean to do this, but it's good that I did. What I'd like to have happen is when the program runs, I'd like it to start here, then go to here, then to here, then to here, then to here. Does that make sense? I'd like it to go in that order, and right now it does not. So I'm going to stop my program run. Just so you know, sometimes when you stop, you'll have a little button that'll be over here that'll be red, which means that technically the program is still running. And how will you know that? You'll try to type something in and you'll get this little dialog box that comes up that says your program is still running. So if that does happen, click the little red square that's there and a program will stop running. So look on the screen if you would, please. All right? With my screen looking just like this, I'm going to click View. You can do this if you want. You don't have to. But I'm going to click View, and right down near the bottom, about 2/3 of the way, 3/4 of the way down, there's a thing called Tab Order. So I'm going to choose Tab Order. So View, Tab Order. Notice now everything gets a number. And I'm going to click in these buttons in the order in which I want them to run. So this now, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I've changed the tab order. That's what I wanted to have happen. All right? Now, those buttons are still there, and I don't want those numbers, I don't want them, so I do another view tab order, and they're gone. Now notice if I run the program, and I go and click, and I tab, notice now they're in the order I want. Again, part of creating a nice application is to make it as easy for the user to use as possible. All right? What matters in an application is the logic. If it's supposed to do something and you've got the most beautiful interface but it doesn't work, that's not good. I've said this in the past, give me a butt-ugly interface that works as opposed to a beautiful interface that does not work. I may have told you about this in the past, I don't know, but I'll always remember this because one semester when we were doing this, I told students, you know, one person raised their hand and basically said, this stuff just seems so easy. And I said, yeah, I said, I could teach a monkey in a half an hour to create interfaces. But I don't think I could teach the monkey logic. All right? After class, that person went up to my boss and said I called them a monkey, which I never did. My boss actually called me in and yelled at me for that. So I brought him down to the classroom the next day. I don't, you know, and the person was in there, and I didn't want to embarrass them. And I said, all right, have I ever called anybody in here a name? No hands went up, including that person's hand. I said, fine. And if you ever thought I did, then I apologize, even though I know I didn't. And none of you are monkeys. All right? So let's change just a couple more things. The next thing, I don't like the fact that when I run this program, it comes right there. I want it smack dab in the middle of the screen. That makes sense? That's what I want. All right. So how do I do that? Well, in my properties window, what I want to do is click someplace on the form where there's not a button. So I want to just click someplace on the form so it says my form name here. All right. Then I want to go down near the very bottom, and there's something here that says Start Position. And by default, it's set to Windows default location. Right there. I don't want that there. Now, look on the screen, because there's two ways you can do this. I can click here, and it gives me a down arrow, and I can click, and I want to choose center screen. That's what I want. So I can do it like that. But let's just leave it where it is. If I want to, I can double click on it. And every time I double click, it changes that. So you can do it either way. Now it says center parent. I don't want that. I want center screen. All right. So I click there. Now I run the program again, and you can immediately see the difference. For those of you who say, yeah, but I don't like this thing in the background. I don't know how to make that go away, if there is a way. All right. I guess what you can do, if that's really bothering you, is you can go to your code window, and you can always get to your code window by right mouse clicking on the form and choosing View Code or hitting the F2 key. And I can run my program from right here. Now I don't have that other box, so to speak, the other form behind it. That's easier for you. By all means, do it that way. All right? All right, one more thing to show you, and I'm finished talking for today. And that is, again, I'm going to go back to here. And if I run my program and I hit the Enter key, anybody want to guess what's going to happen? Okay, wow, it turned this red. If I hit it again, nothing's happening. I can tell it what I want to have happen, what button I want it to press when I hit the Enter key. Also, if I hit the Escape key, nothing happens. I can tell it what I want the program to do when I hit the Escape key. Let's pretend for just a minute, all right, because it's easier to show it to you like this, that when I click the Enter key, I want that Exit button to run, and when I click the Escape key, I want the Clear button to run. Is everybody with me here? You can change them to whatever you want if you don't like those. All right. But to show you this, again, I have to click on a blank part of the form. Not either button. Click on the form to make sure that's active. And for the button I want it to run when the enter key is hit, I go to where it says here, accept button. Notice it's set to none. And I click there, click the down arrow, and I want to choose button exit. That's it. If I want something to happen when the escape key is hit, I've got to arrow down a little farther here and find the cancel button, which is again set to none. And I'll set that one to button clear. So again, to summarize, I first went to accept button and set it to button exit. Then I went to cancel button and set it to button clear. Now notice if I run my program again and I hit the enter key, oh, that's great. Make me a liar. Well, it was supposed to have worked. But does the exit key work? The exit worked. It cleared. Not sure why. I think it's because of the goofy way I went in there and added and re-added buttons. I think the button is screwed up. All right.
I did the same thing.
All right. Well, maybe you did the same thing that I did. But the point is, the accept button on here will be the action that you want to have happen, the button you want to simulate being clicked when you hit the enter key. The cancel button property will be the one that you want to simulate being clicked when you hit the escape key. All right. Is there more to show you on here? Of course there is. That's enough to get you started. I'm going to do something tomorrow. I'm going to build another simple program. All right. And I'm going to have you build the interface with me as a class and have you name the stuff as a class. And then we'll just put a little bit of code in there. Again, it'll take about an hour. All right. Then on Monday of next week, we're going to go through Chapter 3. And guess what? We're going to spend about 15 minutes on it because you've already covered everything. So we're not going to spend much time on it at all. In an ideal world, we may even get through Chapter 5 by next week. You won't have if we do that, you won't have a test, hands-on test. It wouldn't be till the following week. But that's great because then we're in really good shape after 2 weeks. All right? That's all that I had. Any questions on any of this stuff? There's a lot to throw at you. We got broken up in our hour, but work on this, work on your homework. Again, if you have questions, feel free to go to Tony. That's what he's here for. All right? And if he can't answer it or if he's busy and you want to come up here, that's fine also. I got to go back to the office for just a minute. I'll be back in about 5 minutes then.